right. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing great out there. This morning, I want to reflect a little bit on some very basic aspects of practice I think that we can kind of forget about a lot, that really point to the wisdom dimension of mind, which would be in the Eightfold Path, they would fit under the view, right intention, perspective, thought, imagination, intention, all these kind of words. And I think one of the things that's so hard to really actually embody is this idea of impermanence. And of course, I'm saying this thinking of what's going on in the city of Los Angeles at the moment, which is just unbelievably devastating, of a biblical proportion. And I guess the question I would ask to kind of think about here this morning, and I don't know that I'll come up with much of an answer, but can we ever be fully prepared? You know, can we ever be fully prepared? I can't imagine a scenario in which we could. But when we think about the exhaustive energy that we put into trying to be prepared, right? Trying to make sure this doesn't happen and that doesn't happen in all of the ways. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to mitigate all these potential future scenarios as if I have any clairvoyancy as to what the hell is going to happen anyway. Like, is anybody here fully prepared to come to your house tomorrow and have it be totally gone? Right? Is anybody prepared for that? Is anybody prepared for a loved one that you, even a person, a friend, a family member, just not being here tomorrow? Right? Are we really fully prepared for that? There's no way we can be fully prepared for that. Now, I believe we can train for that. I believe we can be more prepared than maybe we once were. We can certainly be a lot more prepared than other people. And I think in many ways, that's really what the practice does. Even in the Zen tradition, they keep it quite simple. They say, basically we practice, all of practice is just a preparation for death. Is anybody prepared to die tomorrow? We all, and everything I mentioned is going to happen, right? And so I think when we really, anytime you go to a Dharma class, anytime you've read a book on Buddhism, usually one of the first concepts that we get introduced to really quickly is the idea of impermanence, anicca. Now, anicca as a term, impermanence is not the best translation. And as with most of these terms, as I've been trying to remind everybody, including myself, when you take a term like anicca, or you take a Pali term, and then you try to just find one English word to match its equivalent, that's actually just kind of a dumb idea. You can almost never do that. So we have to kind of get a sense of the territory. What is the territory of anicca? Well, yes, things are impermanent. Yes, things are constantly changing, evolving. Nothing is guaranteed. Everything is unreliable, uncertain. Ajahn Chah uses the word uncertain. And also, I think the best definition, or the most accurate definition that you never hear about, is not absolute. There's nothing that's absolute, right? And so the thing about this that's so tricky, why I think we have to take a middle way approach to this, is if you really fully open your mind and heart to the reality of this, you're not going to get out of bed in the morning. This is like, the implications of this are explosive. They're almost absurd, as Albert Camus would say. How do we deal with this stuff? So how do we not stick our head in the sands? How do we not become in denial about what's going to happen? And how do we not become totally caught up in trying to fix, change, avoid, and control? Which just brings us again, as it always does, to what is the middle way approach to the fact that things are always going to change. One of the things that helped me in the last year is an old friend of mine I used to work for who does mentoring, who's not really in the Dharma space so much. He's friends with Vinny Ferraro. His name's Chris McKenna, and I've done a bit of mentoring with him, and I probably will continue to do so because he's really, really great. He's sort of next level. And we were, kind of examining some of the views, what we would call in therapy core beliefs, but some of these views that we hold that kind of give rise to lots of these behaviors. I have a whole range of hypervigilant kind of behaviors that are fucking exhausting. In one of the So why do those behaviors exist? What do those behaviors believe? And for me, because of trauma and loss and a lot of what I've just said, because I've seen the other shoe drop. For those of you who have had the rugs pulled out from underneath you, it can really set us up in a way where we just kind of don't know what to do. And that was kind of the shift of like, I'm always worried or afraid or concerned that the other shoe is going to drop. And how do I avoid that, change that, control that? And actually what ended up happening that really calmed my system down was the recognition of like, you know what? The other shoe is actually probably going to drop. And so instead of trying to foolishly mitigate the inevitable, the question is, oh yeah, that's right. These things happen. And then part of that is trying to feel into the inner resources of like, you know what? I know that happens. These things happen. I've been through it before. But when and if, I'll probably be okay. I'll probably handle it. And a lot of times I think that we forget, and I think wisdom is a big part of this, is trying to remember that you have a whole bunch of tools and resources that you already have. Right? And so the idea of like, how do I strategize around avoiding this thing from happening? It's like, you know what, you'll figure it out, you'll work it out. And to me, that's very empowering because it's like, okay, like I've been through hard stuff before. Hard stuff is going to happen again. And, as they say, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Trying to calm the mind down on that level. There's a story that kind of points to this. I think that's a pretty good story. Is there's the Thai forest master Ajahn Chah, who gets a lot of credit in the Theravada insight world as he should. There's a story where somebody gives him this like drinking goblet, like he gets this really nice like cup or glass, I don't know what it was, it's kind of a goblet to drink water out of, and it was a really nice one. Somebody gave it to him, and he was using it all the time. He was every time they saw him, he was drinking out of this glass or goblet. And one of the teachers said to him, they said, "Gee, Ajahn, it seems like you're getting kind of attached to that glass. You really seem to have that. It's like maybe you should be careful. You really seem to be clinging to your nice goblet." And he says, "Yes, that's true. I very much like this goblet. I like this glass." He said, "But I'm not clinging to it because I know the glass is already broken. This glass is already gone. It's already broken. And knowing that it's already gone, it's already broken, I can enjoy it. And I don't have to covet it. I don't have to cling to it because it's already gone anyway. But while it's here in the meantime," again, this is another reason why present moment experience, living in the present, as challenging as that may seem to be, is generally a good idea, right? Because, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but for today, my children are healthy, my house is fine, things are okay. So there's no reason to forecast out into that. This is another reason why, those of you who heard me talk about it before, I really like this Martin Hegland book called This Life, a book that's about a secular faith and spiritual freedom. It's a great book, but it's actually a great book. It's a long book, but even if you just read the introductory chapter, it's worth buying. Because a lot of these academic philosophical books, one thing I've sort of caught on to them, what they generally do, especially modern day philosophers, is they kind of present an argument. They kind of bring you into their territory. They kind of give you a perspective on thinking about things. And then they spend the rest of the book trying to back up their claim. And I don't need to know why you came to that. I don't actually really care about how you came to your claim or how you're trying to back it up. I just want to know what it is. So a lot of these modern day academic books on philosophy, you can just read the first 100 pages and throw the rest of it out. Because that's really where the good stuff is. And there's also another guy I rarely kind of like these days who's in the secular space. His name's Scott Galloway. He's like an economist. He's like an economy professor at NYU. He's got a bunch of podcasts, but he's been on a lot of things. He's really talking about, young people and their struggles. He's actually really kind of an interesting person. And he was saying the same thing that Hegland was saying about why a secular point of view, why a this life attitude can be really, really helpful. And that is to say that when we're not caught up in the life after death, where do people go when we die? Where do I go when we die? When we kind of put that aside, that kind of thinking aside, and we can kind of wake up to the fact or the reality, as far as we know, this is all you get. You get this one, I got this version of Dave Smith in this life or however long this lasts. This is all I got. And when you take that perspective, it can kind of trigger a kind of courage or a willingness to say, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to live to my fullest potential. I'm going to make the hard choices. I'm going to do the hard things. I'm going to do the hard work. I'm not going to be complacent. I'm not going to be lazy. I'm really going to take it seriously. It's what the Buddha calls samvega, which sometimes is translated as spiritual courage or spiritual urgency, which is very empowering because it just says, well, if that's the case, then I might as well do my best to live to the fullest as best I can in my life with these conditions and these things. And that allows us to make hard choices and really take the practice seriously. And I think when we do that, things get a little bit harder, And so a lot of times the path, I kind of think this word's a little bit silly because a path implies, like if you go to a trailhead or you go hiking to your favorite spot and you get on your path, you just walk. Like it's not that hard to stay on a path in the woods, is it? But this path, I don't know about you, I find falling off all the time is kind of like the path. So that's part of it too, is like having that middle way approach of like, okay, this is Joseph Goldstein talks about this, what I think is good about which makes the path complicated. If I do have I need to have some kind of a vision about where I would like my life to go. I do have to have a sense, a vision, an idea about the things that I would like to accomplish, the things that I would like to do, where I would like to go. So I have to have a sense of what the top of the mountain looks like. I have to be like, okay, I'm going there. But I also have to keep my eyes on my feet. I also need to be present for what's going on in the day to day. And of course, those two are connected. And when we have bigger goals, bigger ideas, ways of bettering ourselves that we want to do, that we have a sense what they are, then it tells us very obviously in the present moment experience, am I living up to that or am I not? Right? And what happens a lot of times is if you have an all or nothing mentality, which I can certainly have, if we fall off, if we make a mistake, we just kind of will abandon and will resign the whole project. I'm like, I never stick to anything anyway. I never follow through with this and I never follow through with that. And then we kind of almost use that as a reverse engineered excuse to not stay on it. So I think a lot of times, and it is interesting too, because if you think about meditation training, it's the same goddamn thing, right? You sit for 30 minutes, you try to attempt to do this little drill of being in the body or the breath or trying to be kind and friendly, whatever it is, right, we're trying to do. And most of the time what's happened is actually that's not what we're doing. We're forgetting. We're waking up, and we're reapplying, right? And I think that this works with everything in life. Oh, I forgot I was trying to do this. I forget, I wake up, and then I just kind of reapply that back. There's actually a word for this in this program that I teach called Cultivating Emotional Balance. Is called cognitive balance. There's basically 4 balances that we try to adjust for human well-being. We want to be balanced cognitively, emotionally, cognitively, and there's another one I'm not remembering at the time. And cognitive balance is when we're aligned, when we're in alignment, when our kind of on our intentions and our views and our values and our actions and our behaviors, kind of very eightfold path, is when we're living in alignment. We're doing the things that we want to be doing, and the best thing about that, as I've noticed, when you're in alignment, you feel good. It does. It just really feels good when we're following through. Another way to say that would just be follow through, and again, we talked about this on the retreat I just taught, this word intention, which I think is such a huge, gigantic dimension of mind that, again, trying to reduce that to one word is a bit foolish. But what it is, it's this recognition that intention is so important, so important. It's essential. And at the same time, it's completely and totally not enough. Right? And so we have to try to, that's where we have to try to put voice to these things, express these things to ourselves and others, and then actually do the things, that we said we want to do. And so I think one of the things about opening to the tragic dimensions or acknowledging those without indulging those is a recognition that we sometimes can use those things as an excuse to not try anyway. Right? And this is where doubt generally festers. I know that for me, doubt sneaks in. For me, doubt is a very sneaky, like craving and aversion are usually obvious to me. Like when I really want something or I really have a lot of resistance going on, it's usually right in the front of my head. It's right here. But doubt's like way back here. Doubt like sneaks in the back door and goes, I know you say you're going to eat better and exercise and you're going to do this, but you know you're not gonna, right? Dude, it's been 20 years you've been trying to get your shit together. You're just not going to do it. It's like whispers in the back of your head. You know this voice? It's just doubt, right? It's insidious. It's like, the Buddha would say, really the most destructive force in the mind because it will talk you out of these experiences. And so wisdom, knowing this thing, can just validate and go, yeah, you're probably right. I'm probably actually not going to follow through, but I'm going to fucking try anyway. And so it's just that, like, that to me, that's the great message is fuck it. I'm going to try anyway. Right? That usually squishes the doubt where it's just like, I validate it. You're probably right. You are. If we looked at the evidence up until this moment, we would say probably not looking good for me to pull it together in this way, shape, or form, but I'm still going to attempt to try anyway, right? And then if we like kind of zoom back out to the multi-life thing, however you hold that, if there is something that comes after this, I cannot think of a better way to prepare for it. Right? So it's kind of like you're kind of covered either way, because if you live your best life in this life, if you really take it seriously and try to do what you can to find contentment, meaning, and purpose, then, if nothing else happens after this, at least you had a good one. And if something does come after this, no harm, no foul. So it's really kind of an efficient way to go about these things. So, the question being, can we ever be fully prepared? I don't think we can be fully prepared, but we can be more prepared. And part of that, I think, is being honest with ourselves and realistic about the fact that there's so much we have no idea about. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We just don't know. We really don't know. This is, again, where the Zen folks really have it down. Their whole damn thing is you don't know. And so that's actually true. And so this is a good way to just kind of think about some of the things that are going on that have been on my mind for sure. So thank you for your kind attention.